Hi, I'm Jeanette Peterson, writer and mindfulness coach. Welcome to the Art of Mindful Disruption, where I share conversations to help relax, motivate, ponder, and inspire you to grow. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a mindfulness meander with me as I traverse some topics that might just make you think a little differently about pretty much everything in life. Over time, if you continue to listen to this channel, I will challenge your thinking and emotions in ways that you may never have considered possible. You see, mindfulness disruption is not about chasing solutions. It's more about building awareness and allowing the solution to find you. So let's take some time to take a few long, slow, deep breaths just so we can get focused to where we are and what we want to maintain our attention on for the next half hour or so. So it's really about being present. And so we want to take some deep breaths in through our nose, and we breathe them all the way into our belly space so we can actually feel our belly expand. And we want to do this to really center around our breathing. We could have been in a space where we were rushing around, taking the kids to school, getting ready to go off to work. There are so many things that we tend to squeeze into our lives that we find it difficult to come back to that present space. So let's just breathe those nice, long, slow, deep breaths in through your nose and out through your nose, breathing all the way into your belly and all the way out. As you breathe out, we're just releasing that air and feeling that sensation of the breath leaving the body. And we'll just do it a few more times, breathing in through our nose, nice and slow and deep. Center that attention. Feel your breath as it slowly releases and leaves the body. So we should be feeling a little more centered now. So let's dive right into today's topic, and we're going to talk about raising your hope through healing. Now, healing, it's an interesting topic and something we talk about in all kinds of different ways, but it's incredibly powerful, and we have much more control over our own personal healing than we first may think. So the question I would ask you first is, have you given yourself permission to heal lately? You know, healing is an incredibly powerful tool to help raise you up and take you forward on the path that you're heading in life. And sometimes it feels like, in a way, we're stumbling along that path, or we're racing along that path, madly trying to find our way to the finish line. But life's not a destination, life's a journey. And that feeling about allowing ourselves to stop and take stock sometimes and to heal through processes that occur along that path is incredibly powerful. So you might be saying, well, why do you know so much about healing, and why do you think healing is so important? Well, I've experienced the power of healing both personally, and I've helped other people to experience the power of healing themselves. And this is a new and interesting endeavour for many people, because we always see healing as something that somebody else does for us, rather than something that we have within our own realm of control. So I found myself in a very interesting situation as part of the first lockdown in COVID in the city that I live in Melbourne, Australia. I lost two things that I treasured most in life. And if you think that potentially by me leading this way that I'm about to tell you a sad story, well, it's not really a sad story. It's more a story of hope. You see, I lost my beautiful mother and my constant companion, my dog, literally 1 week apart, right in the middle of a lockdown, after I'd closed the door of my business through pressure that was applied as part of forced shutdown for many businesses in the place that I live in Melbourne, Australia. Now, while many people were worried about things like not being able to go out for dinner, I was literally travelling to and from hospitals in the middle of a pandemic. And I can tell you, a hospital isn't the place that you really want to be in the middle of a pandemic, but that's where I found myself. So sometimes life feels like it literally turns you on your head. And when you manage to get up, just with enough courage to keep going, that sometimes it feels like it just blows you off your feet again. Have you ever felt like that? Like you've barely had a chance to catch a breath, and then the next thing just comes racing along and hits you and knocks you over again. We've potentially all experienced these things in life, and they can feel absolutely debilitating and terrible at the time. But for me, something really interesting happened. So not long before COVID hit in Australia, I just started a new business, and I had to literally, as I said, close the doors to my business. So this was pretty much the world that had turned me on my head. Then, not too far ahead, fast forwarding to May in Australia, which is Mother's Day, my mum passed away, literally on Mother's Day. And then the following Sunday, I had to say goodbye to my beautiful, beloved companion, my dog, named Scooter. And that was the final blowing me off my feet. But amid all the loss, something absolutely magical happened. I healed. And this is something that you can do as well. It's the incredible power of self-healing. So as I said earlier, you have a lot more control over how you heal than you first might think. So I'm kind of what some people would call a modern day yogi. And my story I'm about to share with you is a story of hope. You see, it's a natural part of the ever-changing world that we live in. Loss, that is. We lose things all the time. Things change, things move as we progress forward. But what I discovered was through my yogic practices that I've learnt to weather even the storms and the terrible storms of loss in my life very successfully. It's possible to find hope through healing, and I can teach you how because I've learnt it in my life, not just on this one occasion, but many times progressively. So if you were struggling right now, that you feel like the wind has blown you over, and then just as you tried to get up, something else came and just knocked you down again, that you're feeling like it's just too much and you don't know how to pick yourself up and move forward. Well, there's some beautiful skills in mindfulness that you can adapt and take on in your life that can really help you start to feel into the potential power of self-healing. So the first skill is breathing. Now, we take breathing completely for granted. Well, that's because it just happens subconsciously and we don't need to think about it. So we forget, and we kind of forget to breathe properly. So when you learn to actually breathe better and breathe deeper, we create physical healing within our body without us even realizing. So in day-to-day life, it's really common for us to become really shallow breathers where we're not really oxygenating our blood very well. And we know that scientifically, the more oxygen we put into our blood, the more that's passing through our body and the greater healing we're able to do. Because a good oxygen content in your body is great for your cells. So when we start to breathe really shallow, it's almost like we're limiting our own physical capacity to heal. And then if we do that, if you imagine our life's a bit stressful, we've got a lot going on, we're trying to raise a family, and so many of us are all trying to work at the same time while we're doing that. And then something heavy like the loss of a family member, the loss of a job, the loss of a home, or many, many other losses that happen in life, suddenly arrives and you were already on the back foot because you weren't breathing well, and then you weren't looking after yourself, so you were stressed, and then this loss, it just feels like the final straw. So learn to breathe better. And when you do this, you not only help your physical body, but breathing better does so many things for you. So in a moment when you feel really stressed, if you just stop and take some nice, long, deep breaths. If you've had an argument and you stop and you take some nice, long, deep breaths. If you get up in the morning and you feel tired and you stop and take some nice, long, deep breaths. If your children are frustrating you and you stop and take some nice, long, deep breaths, are you starting to see a pattern forming? It's the pattern of stopping and taking some nice, long, deep breaths, just like we did at the beginning of this conversation. So it's a simple thing to do, but you can find that a very simple exercise that you can do in your life, if you put a timer on and you just breathe naturally for 1 minute, and when the timer goes off, you've counted how many times you've taken an in-breath, and you write it down. And then you take a minute and you focus on your breathing, and you try to breathe in and out nice and slowly and long, and be much more aware and conscious of your breathing for a minute. You don't count anything, you just do that for a minute. And then you put the timer on again and you breathe naturally for a minute. Don't focus on your breath, just breathe naturally. That feels completely normal for you. Time how many times you breathe in a minute and compare with the first minute. Now, this is a simple, easy breathing exercise, and there are thousands more breathing exercises that are much more significant than this one. But the power of this simple breathing exercise is quite mind-blowing, because in the third minute you will have taken less breaths in a minute than you did in the first minute, just by focusing on your breathing for 1 minute in a day. Now, if you go and work out how many minutes there are in a day, and in 1 minute you've changed the amount of times that you breathe in a minute, and then if you go away and say 8 hours later, you put the timer on for a minute and you count how many breaths you do in a minute, and you might be pleasantly surprised to find that you still are breathing less breaths in a minute than you did the first minute that you calculated. So this power of actually being aware of your breath can have a long-term effect. So imagine if this occurs in 1 minute, what could occur if you do it for 5, 10, 15 or 20 minutes a day? Now you think, I don't have 20 minutes in the morning, I don't have 20 minutes at lunchtime. But do you have 5 minutes when you wake up? Do you have 5 minutes at lunchtime? Do you have 5 minutes when you're walking to the train? Do you have 2 minutes when you're sitting in the car and waiting for your children to come out from school when you're picking them up? Do you have a minute when you go to the toilet? We have so many minutes, just like that minute of practicing to breathe better, but we just try to compile them all into a 20-minute and we think it's too much. And this is because we start too big instead of starting small. So by the time you add 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, 2 minutes here and a minute there, or even 3 long, slow breaths before you go into a meeting or after you've had a difficult conversation, before you know it, you started to spend quite a few minutes on the average day focusing on your breath. So what's that doing to the oxygen level in your blood that's traveling around your body to help your body to heal? And that's every part of your body, including your mind, your heart, and every other space in between. So never underestimate that number one skill is the power of your breath. So if breathing's great for healing oneself, what's another skill that's useful for you to heal? Well, sleeping. And I know that we all talk about you must get a certain amount of sleep, and it's really important to sleep well. And sometimes our sleep's disrupted. It's disrupted when we have children. It's disrupted when we've got things on our mind, or if we're stressed about our work or stressed about our family. But there are some things that you can do to improve not just the duration of your sleep, but the quality of your sleep as well. So while you're actually sleeping and resting, your body's getting an opportunity to not have to focus so much on the talking and all the other things that you're needing to do throughout the day in your lives. And it's getting some opportunity to be able to do some healing. So how do you make the most of that healing time? Well, there are really good things that you can do, like create a better routine before you go to sleep. So turn off the phone an hour before you go to sleep, or set your phone to charge somewhere else and buy a cheap alarm clock if you need to wake up. So you get away from that stimulus of social media and you're not so driven by that right up to the moments before you're trying to sleep. Have a nice hot shower before you go to sleep, just to relax and unwind. Have a nice warm, relaxing drink. Don't have stimulants like coffee and highly caffeinated teas and sweet things that contain sugars that potentially are going to overstimulate you before you sleep. So creating the routine, the sleep routine that works for you, can be anything from an hour before to 5 minutes before, but you can also help your children to do the same thing, and by engaging them in a better sleep routine, you're also able to wind your routine down as well. And there's so many other things that you can do to help you sleep better. There's guided meditation, and there are so many apps and so many tracks that you can gain access to be able to use those in a beneficial way. There's even sleep stories where you can listen to a beautiful story to help you wind down and relax to sleep. So it's really important, think about it. Are you taking care of your sleep? Not just the amount of time that you're sleeping, but the comfort that you have when you sleep, and the program that you have for your life in the build-up before you go to sleep, and then how you choose to wake up in the morning. These are all things that you can do to help improve your sleep and take back control of the powerful healing capacity of sleep that's free and that you can do for yourself. So, then what's the third tip that we can do? Well, it's all about emotions. So the rising emotions that happen during stress or during loss, they could be during a small loss. You could have not passed a test well, you could have failed your driver's license, you could have lost a family member, you could have lost your beloved pet, just like I did. But emotions, they rise, and they're difficult to navigate when we're on our own. And I think it's really important. We often live in a world where we don't make room for our emotions. We don't allow for them to rise naturally, and we don't take the time to feel into what they are, understand where they are in our body, and allow them to naturally release away from us. So often what happens is we actually suppress our emotions and we push them down. And when we push them down, they don't actually go anywhere. They just rise later on. And sometimes when they rise later on, they rise in a much more significant way. And I can tell you from personal experience is they rise in the moments when you really really don't want them. And I bet if you sat and thought, there's plenty of emotions that potentially have risen in your life when maybe instead of dealing with them for the original event, that you've suppressed them, and sometimes suppressed them for absolutely years. And when they've finally risen, they've risen in a way that seems completely inappropriate. And the circumstance around why they've risen, no one even understands why you seem to have completely lost it over something really small. But it's because you're holding on to it. So if you take the time when these emotions are naturally rising during, say, a loss of a pet or a loss of a family member or the loss of a business or the loss of a job, that you take the time out and you allow yourself to process what they are, whether you're spending the time doing that on your own or you're doing it with a friend, a family member, or even a professional. It's giving you an opportunity to allow those feelings to come up, to process what they mean, and to naturally let them leave your body. These emotions arise because your body really wants to disperse them and allow them to go so you can continue on with your life. So emotions are incredibly important. And so through the yogic practices that I've done, I've learned how to feel into my emotions and to welcome them into my heart. And these include all kinds of emotions that rise. I mean, I was a child that suffered terribly from anxiety, and I contained it. I didn't share it with anyone. I just suffered through the pain of anxiety on my own, and then anxiety from a child became stress as an adult, and then I buried more and I buried more, and then you can see where it's going. Yes, it rose at the worst opportunity possible and became something so much more significant than it ever needed to be. But now I know through yogic practices that when the emotion arises, I allow it, I welcome it into my heart, and I let it sit with me. I don't get swept away by them. I just allow them to rise naturally and feel into what it is, and in a calm way I can enable myself to process what that emotion feels like. Now you can, as I said, you can do this on your own, but you can also engage the support of others to help you do it. Emotions aren't something that you have to deal with independently. They are something that you can always get help with. And you should, if you feel that they're overwhelming and you're just struggling to deal with them, or you've discovered an emotion that's now rising that you've realized is connected to something much deeper that's occurred in your past. Get the help. So then you can move forward in your life and live your best life possible and not be held back by that emotion that's dug down deep within you that really just wants to release and wants you to find your way forward. So I've shared with you 3 simple things: breathing, sleeping, and tapping into your emotions. And they're things that we actually do every day, but we just potentially don't do them well. So some of the power that you can take back in your ability to heal is to improve the way we do some of the most simple things in life. So if right now you're finding yourself weathering a storm, whether it's in the midst of the continual roller coaster ride of the pandemic that we call COVID-19, or whether it's like anything else, just the natural ebb and flow of the struggles and the suffering that we have to endure in life. Through hope, we can all create a better world by creating a better you and a better me, one person at a time. You can take back the power that you already have to engage on the path of finding hope through healing, just like I have and just like many other people have before you. Now, this power is not only something that is potentially huge for yourself, but if you learn how to do this, you can also teach others to learn how to do the same thing. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to take everybody on your personal journey and disclose all the elements of your personal life. But just by showing up in a space where you're comfortable with dealing with emotions as they rise is teaching people by default, because they're learning by example. So you're teaching your children in your home, you're teaching the people around you in your workplace, and you just never know. There could be somebody very close to you who's struggling with an incredible amount of pain and suffering that they're holding within. And by you expressing your ability to heal and showing a little bit of vulnerability and sharing a little bit of your story could take them on an incredible path of healing for themselves. And what a beautiful world we will live in if we can not only heal ourselves, but help so many other people find their way along the path of healing, so that we may all live our best life possible and tap into our limitless potential that exists within us all. So if today you found this mindfulness meander helpful to you, the next time you find yourself in a position where you feel panicked, or you feel the rising of old wounds, or you feel into a new wound that you're discovering through loss, remember, you have some power to heal. There are 3 simple things that you can engage in your life. Try them and see what they do to your life, and see if you can improve your own personal power to heal. If you'd like to learn more, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel, which is called The Art of Mindful Disruption, where we talk about lots of different topics, not just about healing, but all things mindfulness and all things disruptive. Because let's face it, we live in a pretty disruptive world. If you prefer to read rather than listen to these meanders, you can follow my blog, which is also called The Art of Mindful Disruption. And there are loads of topics already available there that you're welcome to go and have a look at. And if you come across somebody who's having a problem, share them, because this is the world that we live in. We share our experience. When we share that experience, we grow and we enable others to grow around us. Thank you for joining me today on this mindfulness meander. My name is Jeanette Peterson, and I am a mindfulness coach and writer, and I look forward to the next conversation if you'd like to join me again in the future.